Hi, I'm Sid Sieber, co-founder and CEO of GitLab. And this video is about Auto DevOps. Auto DevOps is technology inside GitLab that lets you get started very easily with CI and CD and kind of embrace all the functionality of GitLab. However, I think we currently aren't consistent in GitLab in how we get people to use it. And I'll give a couple of examples, and then Kenny Johnson will ask some questions. This is the challenge we want to solve. These are the average stages per user. GitLab contains 10 stages, and over the last year, you can see we hardly increased the amount of stages that people used. This is a big problem because we know for every stage that people start using, we triple conversion. So GitLab becomes way more valuable for people and they start becoming customers. So it's essential to get this up, and we have not been able to make it end. And Auto DevOps is a very important way to do that, because if you look at the stages of GitLab, some are super popular. So create is very popular, and verify is popular, and Auto DevOps can make it easy to use package, secure, release, and monitor, and probably also configure, of which Auto DevOps is a part. So if we make this work, we can get people to embrace 5 new stages, which is like, that's going to make the stages per user graph go totally up and to the right. But if you look at how we currently use it, I think I'm scratching the surface of some problems that we have. Normally what we say, Auto DevOps is implicit. Like, you don't add a GitLab CI.YAML file, and then we'll just make sure that Auto DevOps works out of the box, enabled by default. That's great. However, in this video of auto deploy to EC2, you can see that people are adding GitLab CI.YAML file explicitly. So apparently this implicit thing is not something that works well and that we recommend. And if you look at this one, create a job to stop ECS review apps, again, you see that they don't seem to be using Auto DevOps. It seems to be something different from Auto DevOps. So again, we're recommending, hey, people, we got this new great functionality. And by the way, yeah, forget about all things Auto DevOps. Just use this and forget about that. Then we have here a repository with CI templates. And I think a lot of these, I suspect that a lot of these don't leverage the templates of Auto DevOps. Now, it's hard for me to tell because there's a lot of files in here, but I'm not sure they're all built on the Auto DevOps foundation. In fact, like the fact that we're recommending, oh, if you use Go, use this. And if you use this, it doesn't reference anything Auto DevOps, tells me that, again, we're not leveraging Auto DevOps to do this. And here is our deploy template we mentioned earlier. Again, no mention of Auto DevOps. Oh, and this is actually what I'm working on with Dimitri and Sri and a few others. But for the 5-minute production app, we kind of are working around Auto DevOps instead of using it. Now the problem is kind of on me, but it seems to all point in the direction that we're not using it. Also, not all of our technologies are available on Auto DevOps. And for some, for example, I think it was about some scanning. It was like, oh, but if we use that scanner, it takes a while to complete. And I think what we should do is at least introduce people to the scanner and tell the scanner, hey, scanner, just run for 5 minutes or something, and get people a taste of what it can do. And then people should have an easy way to disable that limit. Obviously, we don't want a scan to run for 3 hours, rack up the compute bill, and take a long time for merge requests to succeed. But we should find a way where we introduce people to technologies, because if we keep stages per users below like 1.5, we're not a DevOps platform. They're using one stage. They don't reap the benefits of a DevOps platform, and we're not delivering the value that we intend to deliver to users. Kevin, Kenny, Kevin also invited, and there's any questions or things that I might have misinterpreted?
No, I think that's spot on. I agree with both the intent and the gap, I guess. I think your point of explicit versus implicit is the big glaring gap to me, that we say this should just happen and it doesn't, and it isn't even as inclusive. And it's especially poignant to me in the ops section, because when you talked about those stages, the things that it unlocks is the entire ops section if we can land people in who are using CI to start CI with Auto DevOps. I'll respond that I think I don't know if it's a chicken and the egg problem, but our current viewpoint is that people don't use all of Auto DevOps, they use the decomposed Auto DevOps. And we've kind of, I think I would just say we'd like lulled ourselves into the belief that it's okay if we just give them the composability because that's how people want to use it anyway, and forgotten about the mission of, no, it should be complete from the starting point. And so that's why you see things like the template includes coming out, because it's, well, we know from talking to users that that Auto DevOps isn't sufficient enough, so they end up decomposing it. So it's okay to just give them the composable bits.
Yeah, and I think today the vast majority of people are not using the decomposed Auto DevOps; they're just not using Auto DevOps. I think that's the reality.
Yeah.
So it's wishful thinking. Most of them are using the decomposed one. They're just not using it. We, even in our own templates that we recommend to users, are not using the parts of Auto DevOps.
Right.
So I'm not sure about the solution, but I think one thing could be that we start saying, hey, anytime we have templates, whatever templates we make, you got to make sure that people can, all the Auto DevOps functionality works, and that we have some testing, because I think it's been if we're going to say, hey, use this, we got to make sure that as we upgrade things, as we change scripts, it still works out of the box. And for that, we need to run all those templates. And I think now these templates are all kind of, it's a guideline rather than our promise, hey, this is going to work. And that kind of ends in having a ton of plugins that are no longer compatible with each other. If we think Auto DevOps is the way, we should push it and we should test it and we should make sure it works. Kevin?
I want to paraphrase what I've been hearing. Do you fundamentally view Auto DevOps as the way to have things work by default? So, because at the end of the day, templates are optional. People can choose to use here and there. So by definition, there's no way those things are on by default, but Auto DevOps is the way that GitLab intends for you to get things going quickly and easily.
Yeah, it should work by default. And instead of making 100 different templates, we should just make sure that whatever language you use, Auto DevOps works.
Yeah. The contrary point, I guess, would be one of the concerns that you hear from people who are using Auto DevOps is that it's too heavy-handed for when they start. And so Auto DevOps is where we want you to get your Auto DevOps, your software delivery pipeline to. But when I just start, I don't want to run a SAT scan that takes 10 minutes every time. So that probably drives the like decomposition desire. Your solution to solve that, Sid, was just include them, but maybe like don't have them run, or have them run in some smaller fashion that we can then say, and tomorrow when you're ready, turn on this flip.
Yeah, make sure that it's a click away. And we've been clumsy in how we do it. Like when we introduced Auto DevOps, we turned it on by default. We felt really proud of ourselves. But then even when it failed, we kept running it. Like, oh yeah, that was just not what users wanted. But right now, I bet that 95% plus of all workloads, like they don't even know what Auto DevOps is or how to turn it on. And they've started to customize their GitLab CI to YAML script because we recommend that. And we have hundreds of templates. And now they wouldn't know how to enable that. And if you want to enable it, there's something decomposed. It's hard to spell with all kinds of capital letters. I don't think anybody actually does it.
Yeah. I think we've also entered into a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy where I'll use Orit as an example, but her first shipment of let's easily allow people to deploy to AWS was not, and let's turn that on in Auto DevOps, because that's actually, there's so low usage of Auto DevOps that no one's going to benefit from it. And so she chose to ship it as a template and then only later add it to Auto DevOps. But I think if you think about as a PM, my ability to impact usage of my part of the product or my feature, knowing that Auto DevOps was this highly utilized thing that we had all, it's kind of like we're making a lot of local optimizations when the global optimization would be get everyone using Auto DevOps. And then it's much easier to drive adoption of each individual thing that gets added.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
And it's the only lever I see to go from like 1.5 to like 5 stages per user. I don't think another lever to have such a massive impact.
Especially if we're going to drive people to land with CI, they should land with CI and immediately have a usable Auto DevOps that drives them into 3 other stages on day 1.
And usability is the key. It feels like everyone is making functionality, but no one's taking ownership of the experience of users. No one is like razor focused. Okay, these jobs have to finish fast, and people should be able to turn them on and off really easily.
Yeah. So that leads me to, that was a great segue. My thought process in thinking about this was one of the things we've chosen to do is have Auto DevOps in configure, when I think it makes more sense to have it in a group like the pipeline authoring group, whose responsibility is get users using pipelines. And yes, other teams can contribute their features to that singular Auto DevOps experience, but it also plays well with their desire to integrate, like, flip these switches to add a template or add these additional scans or deployment patterns or things like that. So my takeaway would be we should consider moving Auto DevOps to that group specifically, where that's like the core of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yep. And I think that makes sense. And I could see in your pipeline authoring experience that you see your pipeline, but you see kind of steps in light gray that are like off by default, but you see like, oh, you want to turn on static, you just click that.
Right.
And it's like feature flags for the different parts of GitLab.
Yeah, I was thinking for stages, but or for stages in the pipeline definition, you're saying for stages in the products definition.
Yeah, for stages in the pipeline. Yeah, for jobs, for certain jobs that enable GitLab functionality.
Yeah. Okay. I totally agree. I think it has been a missed opportunity, and we've probably fallen on the local optimization of. And one of the things we've done over the last 6 months, and this is on me and my direction, was enforce that decomposition by saying one team owns the build stage and the secure teams own the secure templates, the other teams own these. And so that has allowed there not to be a singular owner. But I think if we give it to pipeline authoring, they have a lot on their plate, but they also are very focused on this authoring experience and driving CI adoption. And I think they have been doing a lot of great research around what that experience looks like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And maybe we can make sure that by default, if you start GitLab, you push some code to it. It does the things you want to do. Like if I gave it AWS credentials, it should do the right thing. And it does the things I would probably like a review app, and it's trivial to turn on stuff I might like the security scans.
Yeah, each one of those are like, for example, the 5-minute production app. More complex database types is a difficult thing to do in Auto DevOps because there are these kind of deployment characteristics. And so we're always going to have the like known limitations of Auto DevOps that you currently have to work within. But what I think we need to not do, the mistake we made in the past, is say, well, because there are those known limitations, that means we should just allow it to splinter, and instead say, no, we know there are limitations, but we're going to slowly expand those to things like, deploy to EC2, deploy to Fargate, like those types of activities.
Exactly. And Auto DevOps should support the 5-minute production app. Like you should be able to use it to deploy a production app. And I think a lot of that hesitance to expand Auto DevOps is because it's not tested. Because it's not tested, if you change it and you break it, there's a problem. So people have just made new things because you don't want to break something. So the solution is not to change it. The solution is to test it properly so that you're sure it doesn't break. So we should be testing auto DevOps on every change to any template with multiple kind of code bases to make sure that doesn't happen.
Can you say a little bit more about that? It sounds like you had an experience where you wanted to make a change to an auto DevOps template, or Shri.
No,
or
it's not me, but I've seen it. Like, look, we're not testing this, and because we're not testing auto DevOps, anytime a relevant change is made to one of the templates with 10 different code bases and seeing whether everything still works, people are hesitant to touch the auto DevOps template. So where all the changes should be happening there, people have gone out and does it elsewhere because it's hard to understand. It's hard to know if you broke something. And if you break something, then suddenly auto DevOps is broken for the few users who are actually using it. So untested code just slows down innovation to the point where everyone is doing it someplace else. So that's the first thing to fix. Like, make sure that every time one of our templates is changed, and maybe even on every commit to GitLab, we import, maybe it's 10 jobs with 10 different repositories, a Ruby on Rails and a Node and a Go repository. We run auto DevOps and we make sure that all those things complete.
Yeah, cool. As actions or follow-ups, this came from the scaling agenda. I guess I would track the following actions. One, the idea of moving auto DevOps to pipeline authoring, and two, the idea of I don't know what like a metric for success is.
The number of people in the percentage of adoption of auto DevOps in Verify. So if all the CI pipeline runs, what percentage uses auto DevOps?
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah, I think that would actually be a great performance indicator for that group to be tracking.
And the way to get there is test all the templates and then make sure that all the templates enable auto DevOps. And we never communicate anything else.
Yeah. It has implications on other teams that are present, especially Secure seems to have kind of their own method, but I'll cover that with David and make sure we're lined up.
I'm sure Secure will be delighted by the increase of adoption that's possible. Where we're now in the tens of thousands of people using it, we could go to hundreds of thousands of people. So I think it's can be a big benefit too.
Yeah, the thing, and I agree in the results, but the thing that exists today, because auto DevOps was not successful, the like secure configuration experience, which Marcel highlighted in that video, their experience for adding secure is adding their default templates instead of some experience with turn on auto DevOps and make sure the templates are on, and that we need to kind of move that experience into the general pipeline authoring experience. So,
for sure.
I linked the issue in the agenda that has Nadia and Dove in that group thinking about this exact thing. And anyway, there's a bunch of details in that issue. It'd be worth taking a look.
Okay,
cool. We'll end the recording here. Thanks everyone for watching.